The morning of my wedding was the kind that makes you feel like life might finally be aligning. Crisp but not cold. Bright but not blinding. The kind of morning you don't forget, or at least you wouldn't if it hadn't turned into a memory I'd do anything to erase. People were buzzing around me, fixing boutonnieres, straightening ties, snapping photos I'd never frame. My older brother nudged me, grinning like he knew something I didn't. "This is it, man," he said, like he was delivering a prophecy. "Everything changes today." Yeah, it did. She walked down the aisle like she owned the world. Not just beautiful, dangerous. That kind of elegance you only notice once it's already disarmed you. Every eye in the room followed her, but mine were the only ones that were really seeing her. Or so I thought. I watched her smile at her mom. Wink at one of her friends in the third row. Not me. She didn't even look at me until she was standing across, holding my hands. Her palms were cold. Clammy. Not from nerves, no, this was something else. Like she didn't want to be there. Like her mind was in a completely different room. Then the priest spoke. The words blurred together. I remember hearing my name, and then hers, and then silence. She wasn't answering. The priest prompted her again, gently. "Do you take him to be your lawfully wedded?" She cut him off. Loud enough for everyone to hear, with that same disarming grin, she said, "You know. I probably shouldn't say this now, but Chase, he'll always be the love of my life." The name dropped like a thunderclap. Chase. The ex who once texted her from a bar at 2 a.m. saying, "Miss your mouth." The same guy she swore was ancient history. A ghost. A mistake she never wanted to revisit. There was a pause. Not a quiet one, the kind of pause that hums, where you can hear 100 different reactions inside a single breath. A woman gasped. Someone whispered, "What?" Chairs creaked. My uncle coughed like it would fix the tension in the air. I didn't react at first. Not out of shock, I was processing. Calculating. Watching her expression shift from playful to awkward to something even worse, mock innocence. She tilted her head and added, like it explained everything, "It was a joke." Just a joke, come on. No apology. No panic. Just a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. A few guests chuckled nervously like they were waiting for me to laugh along. I didn't. I reached into my pocket. Took out the ring. It felt heavy. Not physically, symbolically. Like it carried every lie she ever told with it. I placed it on the altar table. No words. Not yet. She started whispering my name, reaching for my arm like she was trying to charm her way out of a parking ticket. I stepped back. Her eyes widened, not out of guilt. Out of fear that her little moment had gone too far. "I'm done," I said finally. Voice steady. "You don't joke about something like that. Not here. Not now. Not ever." She tried to stop me. Called my name louder this time. Begged, suddenly realizing the weight of what she'd done. But I'd already turned. Already walked down the aisle, past rows of stunned faces, past years of memories I'd never get back. Outside, the noise from the church doors spilling open behind me didn't matter. She was calling. Crying. Running. But it was too late. She'd broken something you can't fix with tears or time. And this? This was just the beginning. I didn't drive anywhere familiar. I didn't even think. I got in my car, loosened my collar, tossed the boutonniere out the window like it had insulted me, and just drove. The city blurred past in streaks of color and motion I couldn't focus on. It was like being awake inside a nightmare where everything looked real, but nothing made sense. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Calls. Texts. Notifications. Her name over and over again, and then our mutual friends, my family, her mother. I ignored every single one. I needed silence. Not the kind that soothes, the kind that cracks you open and shows you what's left underneath. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of an old motel outside of town. One of those places that looks like time gave up on it. Peeling paint, flickering vacancy sign. Perfect. I didn't want comfort. I wanted distance. I paid cash, no questions asked, and sat on the bed staring at the ceiling like it was supposed to answer something. By evening, I'd opened one of the texts. It was from her. No long paragraph. Just one line, "Please come back. We need to talk. You misunderstood me." Misunderstood? Like I hallucinated her saying Chase's name at the altar in front of my grandmother and a priest? I didn't reply. But the storm was just getting started. The next morning, I checked my social media out of morbid curiosity. Her page was full of damage control, a photo of her bouquet on the floor with the caption, "When love and nerves collide, not my finest moment, but hoping for understanding." The comments were split. Some friends were calling her brave for owning up. Others asked if I was okay. A few people even tried to defend her. Everyone jokes weirdly under stress. No. No, they don't. I was about to deactivate everything when a message popped up from someone unexpected, my cousin's wife. We weren't close, hadn't talked in over a year, but her message stopped me cold. Hey, I know this is weird and I don't want to make anything worse, but I saw something a few nights ago you should know about. I didn't want to assume things, but now I think you deserve the truth. There was a video. Grainy. Nighttime. But unmistakable. It was her, my fiancé at the time, in a parking garage. Laughing. Standing close to a guy I hadn't seen in years. Chase. She hugged him. Then kissed his cheek. Then his mouth. Not just once. It was from 4 nights before the wedding. 4 nights? My stomach folded in on itself. That feeling when your body knows the truth before your mind catches up. Everything clicked. The cold hands. The distracted eyes. The joke at the altar. It wasn't nerves. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A calculated, cruel, arrogant choice. And she thought she'd get away with it. My hands shook. I felt like I was burning from the inside. Like every part of me that trusted her was catching fire one by one and I couldn't put it out. But even then I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed more. I needed her to hang herself with her own words. So I texted her back. Let's talk. And that's when she really started to unravel. She insisted we meet at our apartment. Our apartment, the place I'd furnished, decorated, paid for, turned into a home. It was still full of our pictures, our furniture, our stupid coffee mugs with inside jokes printed on them. The ghost of a life we'd been building. I agreed. I wanted her on familiar ground, somewhere she felt in control. I needed to watch the mask fall from up close. When I walked in, she was already sitting on the couch, legs crossed. Wine glass in hand. Like this was a casual post-date conversation and not the smoldering wreckage of our engagement. She even had music playing, soft jazz, the same playlist she used to put on when she wanted to make the room feel cozy. It was surreal, like she was staging a performance she didn't realize had already ended. Noah, she said, standing quickly and rushing over like the last 48 hours hadn't happened. God, I'm so glad you came. I've barely slept. I held up a hand. No hugs. No fake tears. Just truth. Why did you say that name at the altar? Her eyes darted to the side. First tell. She wasn't ready for direct fire. It was a stupid thing. I was nervous. Came out wrong. You know how I get when I'm under pressure. You said Chase is the love of your life. It was sarcasm, Noah, she snapped suddenly, voice sharp. Everyone knew I was joking. You humiliated me by walking out. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The sheer audacity of her flipping this on me was almost impressive. Almost? So that's your story? Nervous sarcasm? Because I saw the video. Her wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Slowly she lowered it, mouth parted like she was calculating which lie would hurt less. What video? You know which one. Parking garage. For nights before the wedding. You and Chase playing nostalgia games with your mouths. Her expression twisted. Not shock. Not guilt. It was something nastier, annoyance. Like I'd found the cheat code to her narrative and now she had to scramble. That wasn't what it looked like. Really? Because it looked like you were rehearsing for a big mistake with your ex. She set the glass down and walked to the window, staring out like the city would offer her a script. Then, without turning, she said, I needed closure. I blinked. Closure. Yes, she spun around now, hands raised like she was the one on trial. We had history. I needed to see him one last time to be sure. Sure of what? That I wanted you. I should have walked out right then. I should have taken whatever dignity I had left and left her in that apartment with her lies and her jazz and her cheap red wine. But I didn't. I needed to see how far she'd go. What she'd say. What kind of person I almost married. So you kissed him. For closure. Yes, she said too quickly. It meant nothing. I told him goodbye right after. I couldn't go into a marriage with doubts. I was doing it for us. The spin was Olympic level. Twisting betrayal into some noble sacrifice. I took a step closer, just enough for her to see how calm I was. Because I wasn't here for anger. I was here for the kill shot. You told him goodbye, huh? Yes. Then why did he post a story the night before the wedding from your hotel room balcony? Her face went white. And that was it. That was the moment I saw the real her, not the curated, polished, Instagram-perfect fiancé. Not the girl with the playlists and the perfect smile. I saw the coward. The liar. The woman who gambled everything and thought she could bluff her way through the fallout. She sat down, hand to her forehead. Okay, fine. We talked. I was confused. But I chose you, Noah. I still choose you. No, I said, stepping back. You chose you. You chose him. You chose to lie. Over and over. She stood, trying to close the space between us like proximity could undo truth. We can get past this, she said, voice cracking now. People make mistakes. I made a mistake. I looked her straight in the eye. No. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did. That's a betrayal. And I'm not dragging this corpse of a relationship through any more stages of denial. She didn't cry. Not then. She just stared at me, stunned. Like she was realizing the ending wasn't going to be hers to write. And that's when I left her for the second time. But this time she wasn't chasing. I drove again, but not to escape, not this time. I needed somewhere quiet to sort through the ruins. I ended up at Derek's place, my best friend since 5th grade. No questions, no judgment. He opened the door, handed me a beer, and let me collapse into his worn-out couch like a man who just survived a crash. We didn't speak for a while. Just the sound of the city muffled through the windows and the occasional clink of bottles. Then he said, "She did it, didn't she?" I nodded once. He didn't say, "I'm sorry," or "You'll get through this." He just leaned back, shook his head, and muttered, "I knew it." That cut deeper than it should have. "You knew?" "Not knew," he said. But there were signs. Way she started pulling back the last few months. Her whole vibe changed. Cold. Always on her phone. The way she kept bringing up Chase. Like she wanted to see if you'd react. I felt the shame start to coil. That burning, embarrassing realization. Everyone else had seen pieces of the truth, and I had been blind by choice. I had turned red flags into romantic quirks. I called her distant, but independent. Called her cold, but just stressed. I'd rewritten her absences into acts of trust. She's saying she was confused. I told him, watching the label peel off my bottle. She said she kissed him to get closure, and still picked me. Derek scoffed, like I told him a bedtime story. Yeah? Closure doesn't check into a hotel room. He wasn't wrong. Still, a part of me, the smallest, dumbest part, wanted to believe it, because if I accepted the truth, then I had to accept that I was nothing but a backup plan. A safe bet. A guarantee she could afford to risk because she thought I'd never walk. That's when Derek said something that stuck with me more than anything else. You weren't her first choice. You were her safety net. You think she cries because she lost you? No. She cries because her parachute didn't open. That broke something open in me. Because it was real. It was ugly. And it was exactly the truth I needed to stop hoping she'd explain everything away. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on his couch, eyes fixed on the ceiling fan spinning above me. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another text from her. This time longer. No apologies. Just deflection. I didn't cheat. You left before I could explain. You humiliated me. You made me look like a fool. You never even asked what really happened. No remorse. No ownership. Just her playing the victim in a story she set on fire herself. I didn't reply. But I did open our shared photo folder in the cloud. Thousands of pictures. Trips. Laughs. Her smile. My smile. The slow, innocent start to something that was supposed to last. And I deleted every single one. One by one. I didn't bulk delete. I wanted to feel every image disappear. Not out of rage. Out of mourning. Mourning the life I thought I had, the future I thought I was promised, the woman I thought she was. I got to one photo the night I proposed. We were in the mountains. Fire pit glowing behind us. She looked so damn happy. I stared at that photo longer than the rest. Tried to see if the lie was already there, somewhere in the corners of her eyes. I deleted it, too. The next morning, she called. I didn't answer. So she called again. And again. And again. By noon, her number was blocked. And just like that, I'd erased her from every digital corner of my life. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just deleting photos or blocking her number. I was preparing for war. You think walking away is the hard part? It's not. The hard part comes after, in the aftermath. When your hands are no longer shaking, when your voice has stopped cracking, when the dust settles and you're finally alone with the truth. That's when it hits you like a freight train. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was theft. She stole my time, my trust, my future. But I wasn't about to sit in a pile of shattered promises and cry over it. First step of my quiet revenge? Exposure. Not vengeance, not public shaming, just the truth handed gently to the people who deserve to know. Her parents were first. I met her dad at a diner we used to go to as a couple. Strange, I know. He looked like he hadn't slept. Hair messy, eyes bloodshot, suit coat wrinkled. When I sat down, he didn't say a word, just nodded, waiting. Her mother hadn't come. Couldn't handle the shame, apparently. I'm not here to trash her, I began. I'm here because you need to hear what she won't tell you. I laid it out like a surgeon. Clean. Precise. No embellishment. The video. The hotel room. The name she dropped at the altar like a dagger to the chest. I watched the color drain from his face, saw his hands clench the coffee mug like it was the only thing anchoring him. She told us you just panicked, he said quietly. That you were unstable. That you left because you couldn't handle commitment. She lied, I replied. To save face. To avoid admitting she blew everything up for a guy who didn't even want her back. He didn't deny it. Didn't defend her. Just nodded again, this time slower. Like a man finally accepting a verdict he didn't want to hear. Then he did something unexpected. He slid a small velvet box across the table. She asked me to return this. Thought maybe you'd want to sell it. Or throw it into the ocean. I opened it. My engagement ring. The one I spent 3 paychecks on. The one I'd carried in my pocket for a month before proposing because I couldn't find the perfect moment. I closed it without a word. Took it. Left him with the check. On the way out, I paused by the window. He was still sitting there, staring at his coffee like it might offer absolution. I didn't pity him, but I understood him, trying to reconcile the daughter he raised with the woman she became. After that, the truth spread like fire on dry grass. Her friend group cracked straight down the middle. Half of them tried to defend her with tired lines. You don't know what she was going through. Relationships are complicated. Nobody's perfect. But the other half, they turned. Fast. One of them even messaged me anonymously with screenshots of texts. Weeks before the wedding, where she bragged about testing the waters and saying I'd never find out. The texts were disgusting. Cold. Calculated. Not the kind of thing you send if you're confused or scared or emotionally struggling. It was all a game to her. A game she thought she could control. She never expected I'd walk out. Never expected I'd unravel her story so publicly, so cleanly. And now? Now she was spiraling. The last message I received from an unblocked number, which I knew was her using someone else's phone, read, "You've turned everyone against me. Is that what you wanted? Are you happy now? Happy? No. But satisfied? Starting to be. Because this wasn't about vengeance. This was about reclaiming the narrative. She tried to paint me as weak, unstable, insecure. But now, everyone knew the truth. And the woman who used to walk into rooms like she owned the air was suddenly a ghost. And this ghost? She was about to be EG.IT started with a voicemail. I hadn't heard her voice in days, and it was strange how quickly I forgot the way it used to sound when she wasn't lying. This version of her was different, frantic, brittle, like every word was being held together by thread. Noah, please. I don't even know what to say anymore. You've made your point, okay? Everyone hates me. I can't go outside without feeling like people are staring. I lost my job. My own sister won't speak to me. Are you really proud of this? Is this what you wanted? Click. She called again the next day. Another number. Another message. I messed up. I know I did. But you're not perfect either. You left me at the altar. You humiliated me in front of my family. You could have forgiven me, but you chose to destroy me instead. She still didn't get it. This wasn't revenge. This was reality catching up. She was collapsing under the weight of her own decisions, and she wanted someone else to blame. Me. The man she publicly betrayed, then privately tried to manipulate with half-truths and fake apologies. What she didn't know was that I'd already moved on, not romantically, not yet, but mentally. I was done giving her space in my head. I was living at Derek's place still, but I was making plans. Seeing lawyers. Untangling finances. Getting my name off the lease. Canceling wedding bookings. Donating decorations and cutting ties with vendors. Every signature, every phone call, every document I shredded was another piece of her I set on fire without making a sound. Then came the letter. A real one. Handwritten. Delivered to Derek's mailbox like we were in some twisted version of a romantic drama. It was 6 pages long. 6 pages. Front and back. It started with the usual. How she couldn't sleep. How she missed me. How everything reminded her of me: songs, coffee shops, the smell of rain. The kind of poetic regret that reads more like a script than sincerity. Then it turned. She wrote about Chase. Claimed he used her, then ghosted her 2 days after the wedding disaster. Said she felt pressured into reconnecting with him, that he manipulated her emotions and exploited her nostalgia. According to her, he never cared. He just wanted to see if he still had power over her, and once he proved he did, he vanished. She was right about that part. Chase was a parasite, but she invited him back in. She set the table, opened the door, handed him the match and begged for a spark. She ended the letter with one sentence: "You were the only real thing I had, and I destroyed it." I folded the pages and didn't tear them up. Not out of sentiment, out of strategy. I kept the letter. Just like I'd saved the texts. Just like I'd archived every message and screenshot. Not because I planned to use them, but because I'd learned something. People like her rewrite stories. They erase details, twist truths, turn sins into misunderstandings. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Not again. Later that week, I ran into one of her friends at a grocery store. Not a close one, just someone I recognized from the engagement party. She looked uncomfortable, then said she's not doing well. She cries all the time. Says she didn't know how much she loved you until it was too late. I just nodded. I didn't say what I was thinking. Because the truth is, she didn't love me. She loved being adored. She loved being chased. She loved being safe. But me? She never saw me. And that's when I realized the greatest freedom in the world isn't leaving someone who betrayed you. It's knowing you never have to carry their lies again. It was a Saturday afternoon, maybe 2 weeks after the fallout, when I heard her voice again, this time in person. I'd gone back to the apartment to collect the last of my things. I'd coordinated it so she'd be out. We'd been communicating only through lawyers by that point, strictly logistics: who gets what's owed, what needs to be signed and scrubbed from shared accounts. I thought it was going to be simple, in and out. But there she was, sitting on the floor of the empty living room like a child who got lost in her own house. Legs tucked underneath her, hoodie way too big, hair messy, not styled, not curated, just raw. When she looked up at me, her eyes were puffy, red-rimmed, but dry, like she'd already cried herself out. I didn't say a word. Just stepped inside, moved toward the boxes I'd left behind. "You don't have to pretend you don't care," she said suddenly. I kept packing. "You think this is easy for me? You think I'm sleeping at night? You think I don't hate myself?" Still, nothing. She stood up, walked over slowly like I was some injured animal she didn't want to startle. I made the worst mistake of my life, and I know that now. I know it every single time I wake up and you're not next to me. Every time someone looks at me with pity. Or worse, disgust. I zipped the suitcase. She flinched at the sound. "Do you want me to say I'm a terrible person?" she asked, a little louder. "Fine. I am. I'm awful. Selfish. Blind. I destroyed something beautiful because I was scared. I messed up and I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but if you could look at me and not hate me, maybe I could start to live with myself again." I stood, and I looked at her. Really looked at her. "I don't hate you," I said. Relief flickered across her face. "I don't love you either," I added. And that was the real punch. Her breath hitched. One hand went to her chest, like she needed to physically hold herself together. "Don't say that," she whispered. "Don't say that. You're just hurt." "No," I said, calm as a grave. Being hurt was what I felt at the altar. Hurt was what I felt when I saw the video, when I read your messages, when I heard you say his name like it meant more than mine ever could. This is peace. She sat back down, like her legs had stopped working. "You could have told me," I said, grabbing the last box. "You could have told me you had doubts. You could have told me you still had feelings. You could have called off the wedding instead of dragging me into your mess and lighting it on fire. I didn't know how, she said, voice cracking. I didn't want to lose you. But you did, I replied. The second you chose him, you lost me. You just didn't feel it yet. I walked toward the door. Her voice followed me. I'll never love anyone the way I loved you. I paused. Not because I was tempted, not because I felt sorry, but because that sentence, that exact sentence, was her last trick. A way to bind me to the memory, to keep herself alive in my mind as something tragic, something worth grieving. I turned around one last time. That's the thing, I said. You didn't love me. You loved what I gave you. But you never once thought about what it cost me to keep giving it. And I left. No screaming. No slamming doors. Just silence. And behind me, the sound of someone finally breaking. Not because I was gone, but because I wasn't coming back. After that final confrontation, the silence was louder than anything she had ever screamed. She didn't message again. No calls. No letters. Not even a half-baked excuse delivered through mutual friends. And that silence? It was a gift. A confirmation. She knew there was nothing left to twist. No thread left to tug. She'd pulled every string and watched the whole thing collapse around her. And now she had to sit in the rubble alone. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. Not out of some dramatic rebirth montage, not with deep therapy sessions or yoga retreats, just piece by piece, quietly. I cut out the dead weight. I called the vendors and explained. Most were kind. A few even refunded part of the costs when I showed them what happened. The tux rental guy patted my shoulder and said, "Dodged a bullet, son." I believed him. The guest list was harder. Dozens of people who showed up to watch a celebration and left with a story they'd whisper about for years. Some tried to reach out. Messages about how strong I was, how proud they were that I stood my ground. It was nice, sure, but hollow. They weren't there for the nights I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, or the way I stopped trusting the sound of laughter because hers used to come right before a lie. Then came the real curveball, a message from Chase. Yeah, him. A short, smug little DM on some random social platform I forgot I even had. Like he couldn't help himself. Like gloating was in his bloodstream. Didn't mean to cause a scene, bro, hope you're good. She's been blowing up my phone since you left her. Guess I should have warned you, huh? No apology. No decency. Just another arrogant little smirk in text form. And that snapped something in me. Not rage. Not even close. Just a sudden, pure awareness of how utterly stupid I had been. I'd spent months, years, defending a woman who entertained messages from this walking pile of entitlement. I'd taken bullets for her, cut people off, trusted her version of every story because I thought love meant believing someone, even when your gut begged you not to. I blocked him instantly, didn't respond. He wasn't worth a single syllable. But I did something else after that. I wrote. I opened my laptop and poured out the whole story. Not to shame. Not to get pity. Just to tell it the way it happened. Raw, unfiltered, without the polish she always needed for appearances. I didn't name names. Didn't include screenshots. Just the truth. The version no one ever gets to hear because the liar always shouts louder than the one trying to process. I posted it anonymously on a forum. The kind where stories like mine live, where people speak with honesty instead of pretense. I expected a few reactions. Maybe a handful of comments from strangers telling me they'd been there. But it blew up. Hundreds of comments. People resonating, responding, sharing their own stories. Men and women alike saying, "I thought I was alone in this." Or, "You just described my last relationship perfectly. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel small, or foolish, or weak. I felt free. Because here's the thing, betrayal doesn't just take your trust. It steals your voice. It makes you second-guess everything you remember. Was she always like that? Did I ignore the signs? Did I make her act that way? But when you tell the truth, when you finally rip it out of yourself and lay it bare, you reclaim your power. The post ended with one line. The only one I needed. I didn't lose her. I let her go. And that was the first real victory. Weeks passed. Life didn't snap back into place, it morphed. New routines, new quiets. There were still moments where memories crept in like fog under a door. A coffee mug she left behind, a shirt folded the way she used to do it. Ghosts, but harmless ones. I didn't chase them away. I just let them pass through me. Then came the wedding photos. I hadn't even thought about them. But apparently, our photographer, poor guy, probably traumatized from witnessing that nuclear meltdown of a ceremony, had finished editing the pre-wedding shots. The ones from the rehearsal dinner, the morning prep, the moments before everything detonated. He emailed them with a polite message, "I understand if you don't want these. Just let me know. Wishing you peace." I clicked the link. There we were, smiling, touching, laughing. She was laughing in every shot, leaning into me like she had the whole world figured out. And me? God, I looked so sure. So locked in. Not a trace of doubt in my posture, not a flicker of suspicion in my face. Just blind, burning loyalty to someone who had already decided I was Plan B. I should have deleted them. That's what you do, right? Purge the past, cleanse the timeline, start fresh. But I didn't. I kept them. Not to remember her, but to remember me. The version of me who believed so fully in someone. The man who loved with his whole chest, who didn't hesitate. That guy didn't deserve shame. He deserved respect. Even if he was wrong. Especially because he was wrong. A few nights later, Derek invited me to a rooftop party. Not my scene, too many strangers, too much noise, but I went. Not to find someone new. Just to be someone new. And then something unexpected happened. There was a girl, not flashy, not loud. Just real. She noticed I wasn't drinking and offered a soda from her bag. We talked. Nothing deep, nothing forced. Just easy. At one point, I must have flinched when her phone buzzed. She caught it. "Ex-drama?" she asked gently with this kind of casual knowing. I paused. Then nodded. "Me too," she said, and that was it. No probing, no pity. Just two people with bruises, not bleeding on each other. We didn't exchange numbers. Didn't make promises. But when I walked away that night, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Curiosity. Not about her. About me. About who I could be now, untethered. Free from the weight of expectation. Free from being the guy who forgives too fast, listens too long, and bends until he snaps. And somewhere between the elevator ride down and the walk to my car, I realized something huge. I'd already forgiven her. Not in the way she wanted, not to mend things, not to start over. But because holding on to that kind of bitterness? That's just her living rent-free in my peace. I let it go. She cheated. She lied. She humiliated me. And I survived. Not just survived, I evolved. And now she's just a lesson with a name I no longer say. There's a moment after the storm, long after the clouds have cleared and the ground stopped shaking, where you stand still and realize you made it. Not untouched, not unchanged, but standing all the same. I had that moment on a Tuesday. Random, uneventful, middle-of-the-week Tuesday. I was at the same diner where I'd met her father weeks earlier. This time, alone. No envelope. No ring. Just black coffee and silence. I watched people around me living their little lives, laughing, arguing about parking, texting under the table. And I felt calm. Not hollow. Not numb. Calm. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for closure, not for revenge, not for her to finally say the right thing. I had everything I needed. The answers. The truth. The clean exit. And most importantly, myself. You don't walk away from something like this without scars. But scars mean healing. And every time I remembered what happened, I wasn't pulled under by it. I stood on top of it. I hadn't just dodged a bullet. I dodged a life sentence. She reached out one last time. This time through an email, months later, long after the smoke had cleared. No accusations. No pleas. Just a message that reeked of exhaustion and loss. I just want you to know. I regret everything. I hope you're happy. I don't expect a reply. I didn't send one. Not because I hated her, but because I didn't need anything from her anymore. What I did do was take that email, the letters, the photos, everything that had once been tied to her, and I packed it into a small box. Not out of sentiment, but out of finality. I labeled it What I Survived and put it away in the back of my closet, not to hide from it, but to remind myself that I'd lived through it. That version of me, the one who stood at the altar ready to hand over his whole heart, he still existed. But he'd grown sharper. Wiser. Stronger. I started doing things I'd put off. Booked a trip. Picked up an old hobby. Reconnected with people I'd pushed aside because she didn't vibe with them. The world, which once felt like it had shrunk down to her mood swings and gaslighting, had expanded again. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't watching my phone. I wasn't waiting for the next apology or excuse or manipulation. I was simply living. So, to anyone reading this, to the guy questioning if the betrayal is really that bad, if he's overreacting, if maybe it was just one mistake, trust your gut. Lies aren't accidents. Betrayal doesn't just happen. And the person who loves you will never make you feel like second place in your own story. I stood at the altar ready to marry the woman I loved, until she humiliated me in front of everyone by calling her ex the love of her life. A joke, she said. So I made my move, I left. Now she's crying, broken, and begging me to come back. And me? I'm finally free. Not just from her, but from the version of myself that thought I ever needed her.